We are here at the Sundance Film Festival discussing Michael Winterbottom's new film, The Look of Love. We are here with, of course, Michael Winterbottom and Tamsin Egerton. Welcome, guys. Thank you for coming.
Hi.
Of course, the film is about porn baron Paul Raymond, who opened the first strip club in the UK as well.
I wanted to talk to you about the story and kind of what attracted you to this particular story. And also, secondly, with someone like Paul Raymond, who's so larger than life, when you're working on a film like this, what do you do to really focus on those smaller moments and kind of keep the narrative based more on the smaller moments rather than kind of those larger than life kind of controversial moments that he had? Yeah.
Well, really the person who had the idea for the film was Steve Coogan. He came to me about 4 years ago and said he'd like to play Paul Raymond. And I knew a little bit about him. I knew he was, he had a club in Soho that was famous as being a sort of review bar where there was naked women, and he had a magazine called Men Only with naked women in. I didn't really know that much more, and so it actually took quite a long time to decide what the story should be. We worked with Matt Greenhalgh, the writer, and it's like his career, Paul Raymond's career spans about 40 years, 40, 50 years, so there's an awful lot of material to choose from. And at first, I think we thought it could be a sort of the adventures, the life and adventures of Paul Raymond, and be all about the, he was a theatre producer. He had touring productions of women. He had a stage hypnotist act. He had, became the richest man in Britain. He had a big property empire, and it felt like it would be all about that side of his life, the business side of his life. But in the end, working with Matt, we decided that we should really focus on three central relationships that he had with the women in his life. So it's his wife, that was played by Anna Friel, Fiona Richmond, who is a person who he was in love with and was also in his theatre productions and magazines, was played by Tamsin, and his daughter, who's played by Imogen Poots. And in a way, we decided that the film should be a kind of modern-day King Midas story. It's about someone who gets everything they want in material terms, but loses the people closest to him. So that was kind of the broad kind of shape of the process. In terms of details, it's really like working with the actors. I think once you have the script is the outline and the guide. But I like actors to have a bit of freedom. So I think it's normal. I think when people come in and play an individual role, they're looking at the detail. They're looking at how to make their character as real as possible, as interesting as possible, and to respond as naturally as possible. So the detail really comes from people like Tamsin.
And next up, we have Mike in the UK.
Paul Raymond died, of course, in 2008, and I wondered if you ever got the chance to meet him and maybe create some accuracy in the film with how you carried that research out.
No, I didn't get a chance to meet him. When we first started the process of researching the film, we tried to meet people who knew him. So we met Howard, his son. We worked quite closely with John, well, not quite closely, but we had a lot of help from John James, who worked with him and ran his property business and is the father of India, one of his granddaughters. We worked quite closely with Fawn, who is another of his granddaughters. So when Fawn and John James came on set and they saw Steve, they thought Steve did a brilliant job of impersonating him. And I think there are quite a lot of things in Steve's background that are quite similar to Paul Raymond's background. They come from the same part of the country. They have the same sort of education. They're both like Catholic grammar school boys. And I think Steve wanted to play Paul Raymond because he felt he identified with some aspects of Paul Raymond's character. But I think Paul Raymond was quite a strange person. He presented different facets to different people. So we talked to quite a lot of people who worked with him and knew him. But some would say he was generous, others would say he was mean, some would say he was outgoing, and other people would say he was very reserved. Everyone had a very different opinion of him. So in the end, in that situation, you have to just project your idea of who that character might be onto the story. And Steve, obviously it's down to Steve in the end to kind of try and make sense of who he thinks Paul Raymond might be.
Up next, over in Africa, actually, we have Alfred.
My question is for Tamsin. How did you create your own take on Fiona while staying true to the character, or staying true to who she was? And secondly, for Tamsin, what was it like working with Mike?
Okay, so the first question is, how do I stay true to her character? Well, I think mainly for me, my character, I wanted to bring the essence of what Fiona was in Paul's life, which was very much in the beginning a very young, innocent, jovial, fun, loving kind of a person, and kind of gave him an injection of I would say youth and frivolity, and so that was mainly my main goal, and secondly, I spoke to Julia, who's actually her stage name was Fiona, a few times, and just asked as many questions as possible about what their relationship was like. And I always found that it was very loving, and they had huge amounts of respect for each other. And so it's just bringing that across, really. I mean, it's not. I wasn't doing any. I wasn't trying to make an impression. I wasn't trying to mimic her mannerisms. I wasn't trying to be too exact. I just really wanted to bring what I thought she was in his life. And so Julia, Fiona, helped me a lot with that. So that was mainly what I was going for. And secondly, what it's like working with Michael. It's amazing. There's a freedom that you have working with Michael that I've never had before on any other job. There's a lot of trust. You have to have a lot of trust with Michael, but also there's a lot of trust from Michael with you. I mean, he gives you the reins, and he really believes in you. He's cast you for reasons that are unbeknown to you. So you have this amount of freedom that is fantastic, and it means that you can go off script a lot. There are no marks, and you can just completely immerse yourself in the moment. And working with Steve was an utter joy for that, in particular. It was a new way of working, and I will miss it greatly. Going back to having those constrictions and having to be word perfect and having to have your marks is a very, I feel very contrived now in comparison to working with Michael. So you've spoilt me, Michael, but no, it's great.
And lastly, we have Christian from Florida.
My question's for Michael. You and Steve Coogan have worked together previously on movies like 24-Hour Party People and Tristram Shandy, Cock and Bull Story. How do these previous collaborations help shape your dynamic of working together on this new film?
I think it's always easier when you know people. You know, it's always easier when you've worked with people before, and whether it's a crew member or writer or actor. So with Steve, as you said, I've worked a few times with Steve, and so that means you can save quite a lot of time kind of getting to know each other, getting to relax with each other, because it's important, you know, to try and be relaxed on a film, and it's hard to be relaxed on a film. But each film is always different. So in this case, this one is probably more different to the other films I've done with Steve than the rest are, because the underlying story is quite dark. You know, it is a sort of King Midas story. He does lose the people closest to him. You know, even Tamsin's character, which is the sort of the most sort of like simple love story, the one that's easiest and most enjoyable. You know, and then she leaves him. You know, and after that, it's just a series of less meaningful relationships. So it is a darker story, and also Paul Raymond is quite a strange character. It's not like he's a hero of ours or anyone's, really. You know, and he behaves in quite strange ways with people. This actual narrative is quite unusual, you know, and so every time you make a film, you have to look about the specifics of that film and try and work out who that person is or what the story is. You know, so Steve, I think, you know, he's playing a character who, you know, it is hopefully an entertainment, and Paul Raymond lived in a world of entertainment. He lived in a world of bars and clubs and naked women and magazines, a world that seems to be a lot of fun on the outside. But that fun and that glamour is very superficial, you know, and we're trying to also tell the story of all the things he lost along the way. So it was quite a different film to work with Steve in this case.
Now, The Look of Love premiered last night here at the festival. I want to congratulate you both on that.
Thank you.
And thank you to our guests today and everyone who tuned in. That's it for us here at the Sundance Film Festival. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.